The small joys that save us, finding happiness in tiny moments. Introduction: when happiness feels out of reach. At 39, Mia sat at her kitchen table staring blankly at her phone. It buzzed with notifications, work emails, group chats, a calendar reminder, but none of it seemed real. She scrolled, not reading, just scrolling. She wasn't crying. She wasn't raging. She wasn't even sure if she felt sad. It was something quieter and heavier. A kind of numbness. Her coffee had gone cold. As she reached for it anyway, a thin beam of sunlight broke through the blinds, catching on the rising steam from her cup. She paused. For the first time that day, she noticed. It wasn't joy exactly. Not happiness, but something softened for a moment in her chest. For many adults between 35 and 45, especially those quietly wrestling with depression, happiness feels like an impossible goal. Life becomes a series of checkboxes: work, bills, family, obligations. Somewhere along the way, the question creeps in: is this all there is? This guide isn't going to tell you to just be positive or fix your mindset. You don't need another unrealistic to-do list. Instead, this is about something smaller. Gentler. The tiny joys that might save you. A warm drink. Morning sunlight. A kind text. The smell of rain. These aren't cures. But they can be lifelines. Science shows even fleeting moments of noticing beauty, warmth, or connection can help rewire a brain overwhelmed by depression. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need to force happiness. You only need to notice one small thing. This is the first step. Chapter 1: Why Tiny Joys Matter, Especially When You're Struggling. I thought I had to fix my entire life to feel better. But it turned out noticing how the light fell across the kitchen floor was enough for that moment. A story: evening walks that saved him. At 42, Adrian had always considered himself strong. A hard worker. A provider. But over the last year, something shifted. Work had become a blur of meetings and deadlines. His marriage felt distant, and though he loved his children fiercely, even their laughter sometimes grated on his raw nerves. He found himself sitting in his parked car after work, staring at nothing, willing himself to get out and walk into the house. Adrian wasn't sure if it was burnout or depression, or if there was even a difference. He just knew he felt empty. One evening, without thinking, he put on his sneakers and went outside. It wasn't an intentional self-care moment. He just needed air. As he walked, the cool evening breeze touched his face. The smell of jasmine from a neighbor's garden drifted toward him. A cat sat on a warm patch of pavement, flicking its tail lazily. Adrian stopped. For the first time in months, he felt something stir, not happiness, but a softening. He didn't analyze it. He just stood there, breathing. That night, Adrian didn't sleep any better. The next day wasn't magically easier. But he went out again. And again. The walks didn't fix him. But they gave him something small to hold on to, a thread he could follow back to himself. Why small joys aren't small at all. When you're struggling with depression, the idea of finding happiness can feel overwhelming, even cruel. Happiness sounds like a mountain to climb when you can barely lift your head. But here's the truth: you don't have to climb the mountain. You don't even have to take a step. Sometimes all you need is to notice the warmth of a cup in your hands or the sound of birds outside your window. These tiny joys may seem insignificant, but research shows they're anything but. The science of micro-moments. Broaden and build theory: why positive emotions help. Psychologist Dr. Barbara Fredrickson discovered that even brief moments of positive emotion help expand our awareness. Her broaden and build theory explains how these micro-moments allow us to think more clearly, connect more deeply, and recover from stress faster. In one study, participants who practiced noticing positive events reported increased resilience and decreased symptoms of depression over time. It's not about denying pain, it's about giving your nervous system tiny reminders that not all is lost. Dopamine and serotonin, brain chemistry in action. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. Even noticing the smell of fresh bread or a text from a friend gives your brain a tiny dopamine reward. Serotonin, boosted by exposure to morning light or recalling a happy memory, helps regulate mood and anxiety. These aren't magic fixes. But repeated micro-moments of pleasure can start to rewire your brain toward noticing positives, even in darkness. Why this matters for you. Maybe you're reading this and thinking, but I don't feel anything. Noticing the breeze won't fix me. You're right. It won't fix you. But it's not supposed to. Small joys aren't about fixing or forcing happiness. They're about giving yourself tiny moments of relief. Like planting seeds in frozen soil, not much seems to happen at first, but over time, life stirs beneath the surface. A gentle reminder. Happiness isn't built in giant leaps. It's built in teaspoons. Sometimes surviving is enough. Sometimes noticing is surviving. Today, you don't need to overhaul your life. You don't even need to feel happy. You only need to notice one small thing, the sound of rain, the feel of clean sheets, the way your tea warms your hands. That's enough. You're enough. Chapter 2, Relearning to Notice, What Are Tiny Joys? I thought joy had to be loud and obvious. But it was quiet, like the smell of bread baking in the oven. A story, The Smell of Bread. At 38, Leah didn't remember what joy felt like. She was a marketing manager, mother of 2, and the kind of friend who always texted back with emojis and exclamation points, even when her own world felt gray. She wasn't crying every day or unable to work. But there was a heaviness in her chest that never left. One Saturday, Leah found herself in the kitchen, kneading dough for no reason other than boredom. She didn't even enjoy baking much. But as the bread baked, the smell filled her small apartment, warm, yeasty, comforting. She paused. For a moment, she didn't feel numb. She felt, here. It wasn't a big, sweeping happy moment. Just a breath of relief. Later, she started paying more attention, the laughter of her children in the next room, the sun catching dust motes in the air, the way her husband's hand brushed hers as they passed in the hallway. They didn't fix her. But noticing them made life feel less like a blur. What are tiny joys? Tiny joys are the small, often overlooked moments of beauty, comfort, or connection woven through our days. They're not dramatic. They don't require effort. They're fleeting but real, the warmth of a shower on a cold morning, the first sip of coffee. A stranger smiling as you pass, the texture of clean sheets when you climb into bed, the quiet hum of your favorite song playing in the background. These micro-moments aren't about achieving happiness, they're about noticing life happening in real time. Why depression makes noticing hard. When you're struggling with depression, your brain's natural wiring works against you. Psychologists call it attentional bias, a tendency to focus on negative, threatening, or distressing stimuli while overlooking positive or neutral ones. It's not because you're ungrateful or failing, it's biology. The depressed brain is in survival mode, scanning for danger, not beauty. This is why you might scroll past dozens of cute animal videos without smiling, sit through a sunny day unable to enjoy the warmth, feel nothing when someone says something kind. It's not your fault, but here's the hopeful part: awareness is a skill. And skills can be practiced. Learning to tune back in. Think of noticing tiny joys like learning a new language. At first, the words feel strange. The sounds don't stick. But with practice, you begin to recognize patterns. Slowly, your brain starts to pick up the vocabulary of beauty and comfort again. This isn't about forcing gratitude or slapping on a smile. It's about observing gently, being present without judgment, letting small moments be enough. A gentle practice, the one thing: pause. Once a day, pause and ask yourself, what is one small thing I can notice right now? It might be the flicker of a candle, the sound of birds or a distant car passing, the feel of air on your skin, the taste of tea or coffee. You don't need to feel anything about it. Just notice. That's enough. Why this isn't about feeling happy. It's tempting to turn this into another goal: if I notice small things, I'll be happy. But that pressure can backfire. Instead, think of noticing as a quiet act of rebellion against numbness. A way of saying to yourself, even now, I deserve to see this. A gentle reminder. The small things are not small. They are the stitches holding us together when everything feels like it's falling apart. You don't have to do it perfectly. You don't even have to do it every day. But each time you notice a small joy, it's like placing a tiny stone on the path back to yourself. A soft invitation. Tonight, try this, as you get ready for bed. Pause. Feel the texture of your pillowcase. Listen to the faint sounds of your home settling. Smell the clean sheets or your shampoo lingering in your hair. You don't need to call it gratitude. You don't need to smile. Just notice. Tomorrow, see if you can find one more small thing. Chapter 3: The Neuroscience of Small Pleasures. I didn't know that noticing a flower or a child's laugh could change my brain. But it did. Slowly, like light seeping under a closed door. A story, healing through a camera lens. Tom had always loved photography. In his 20s, his weekends were filled with long hikes, a camera slung over his shoulder, capturing sunsets, street corners, faces in coffee shops. But in his early 40s, after a painful divorce and the loss of his father, the camera gathered dust. Depression had crept in like fog, silent, heavy, making everything gray. Months passed in numbness. Then one day, on a whim, Tom picked up his camera again. He didn't feel inspired or creative. He just needed to get out of the house. At first, everything felt meaningless. He pointed the lens at a cracked sidewalk, a stray leaf, an elderly man feeding pigeons. No masterpieces, just moments. But slowly, something shifted. The act of looking, really looking, pulled him out of his thoughts. He began to notice colors again. Patterns. Light and shadow. It wasn't joy. Not yet. But it was something. I realized, Tom later said, that noticing small things wasn't just changing how I saw the world. It was changing my brain. Depression and the brain: why joy feels impossible. When you're in the grip of depression, it's not all in your head. Your brain is literally stuck in patterns of survival. Hyperactive amygdala, fear center: you're more sensitive to stress and threats. Underactive prefrontal cortex, thinking center: it's harder to plan, focus, or feel hopeful. Dampened reward system: things you used to enjoy don't light up your brain the way they once did. This isn't a failure of character or effort, it's biology. But here's the hopeful part: the brain isn't static. It's not broken. Thanks to neuroplasticity, your brain can change, even as an adult. What is neuroplasticity? Neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to form new neural pathways and strengthen existing ones. Like trails in a forest, the more you walk a path, the clearer it becomes. When depression takes over, the brain's paths lean toward negativity and numbness. But with gentle practice, like noticing small pleasures, you begin to tread new paths. Over time, they grow stronger. How tiny pleasures rewire your brain. 1. Activating the reward system. When you notice something pleasant, a warm cup of tea, sunlight on your skin, your brain releases small bursts of dopamine, the feel-good chemical that motivates you to seek more positives. Even if you don't feel a rush of joy, this quiet activation begins to wake up a sluggish reward system. 2. Calming the nervous system. Micro-moments of pleasure, a deep breath, a comforting scent, engage the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's rest and digest mode. This lowers cortisol, stress hormone, and helps you feel safer. 3. Building resilience. Studies show that repeated exposure to positive experiences, even tiny ones, helps the brain regulate emotions better over time. One 2010 study found that savoring small daily pleasures predicted higher well-being and lower depressive symptoms 6 months later. But what if I don't feel anything? You might be thinking, but I notice things and still feel numb. That's okay. The goal isn't to feel joy immediately. The goal is to practice noticing, to gently remind your brain there's more than pain. Feelings often lag behind awareness, but change is still happening beneath the surface. A gentle practice, the Micro-Moments Journal. Each night, write down, one thing I saw. One sound I heard. One sensation I felt. For example, the golden light through my curtains this morning. The hum of my neighbor's lawnmower. The softness of my sweater. Don't force gratitude. Don't pressure yourself to feel anything. Just notice. Over time, these entries become evidence for your brain, there is still beauty here. A gentle reminder. Your brain isn't broken. It's tired. And even tired brains can grow new paths with a little light and attention. You're not behind. You're not failing. Every moment you pause to notice is an act of courage. A soft invitation. Tomorrow, try this, step outside for 2 minutes. Close your eyes. Feel the air on your skin. Listen. Smell. That's all. You don't need to label it self-care. You don't need to enjoy it. Just let your brain record the moment. Little by little, this is how the light comes back. Chapter 4, Gentle Practices to Notice Small Pleasures. The smallest rituals can become lifelines. 1 sip of warm tea. 1 moment watching sunlight move across the floor. 1 breath where you simply let yourself be. Beginning where you are. There's a quiet pressure these days to do self-care perfectly, to journal every morning, meditate for 20 minutes, exercise, eat kale, smile through it all. But when you're struggling, even brushing your teeth can feel monumental. This chapter isn't about adding more to your to-do list. It's about planting small seeds of noticing. These aren't tasks to accomplish or habits to master. They are gentle invitations, soft places to rest your attention. You don't need to feel joy to begin. You only need to start where you are. The morning light ritual. Imagine this, you wake up and before reaching for your phone, you pull open the curtain slightly. The morning light streams in, not bold or dramatic, just a soft glow washing over the room. Even if you're still cocooned in heaviness, even if your mind is already listing worries for the day, pause. Let your eyes rest on the light. Notice how it touches the floor, the wall, your blanket. Maya, a 40-year-old teacher, started doing this during a long winter of depression. She wasn't seeking a transformation, she simply wanted a reason to get out of bed. At first, it felt pointless. But over weeks, she noticed subtle shifts. The light became an anchor. She began associating mornings with this one gentle act. Science supports this too. Morning sunlight helps regulate your circadian rhythm, which can ease sleep troubles common in depression. It also boosts serotonin production, a mood-balancing chemical in your brain. You don't need to stand outside in the blazing sun or meditate on a mountaintop. Just open the curtain. Look. That's all. The tiny gratitude journal. Gratitude journals often get a bad reputation. They can feel forced, another thing you're supposed to feel but don't. But what if gratitude didn't have to be grand or performative? What if it was as simple as recording one thing, not 5 or 10, each evening? For Nathan, 44, it was a single line every night, the smell of coffee from the cafe downstairs. That's it. No emotional analysis. No pressure to feel grateful. Over time, this practice shifted his attention, almost imperceptibly, from all that felt heavy to the tiny moments that didn't. Psychologists have found that even brief gratitude practices can reduce symptoms of depression and improve sleep. But this isn't about science. It's about gently reminding yourself there is still some good here, even if it's small. If writing feels hard, consider speaking it aloud in the mirror, or whispering it before bed like a quiet prayer. The photo-a-day practice. Elena, 37, had forgotten what beauty looked like. Her days felt gray, as though she was moving through life underwater. One afternoon, her friend suggested she take one photo a day of something, anything, that caught her eye. Reluctantly, she began. Day 1, a chipped mug filled with tea. Day 2, her cat curled in a sunbeam. Day 3, raindrops on the window, lit by passing headlights. Something shifted. The act of looking sharpened her awareness. She began noticing colors, textures, patterns, things her eyes had glossed over for months. You don't need a fancy camera or Instagram-worthy shots. Your phone will do. Snap a photo of anything you find mildly pleasant or interesting. This isn't about art, it's about seeing. By engaging your visual attention in this way, you're nudging your brain's reward system awake. Over time, you may find yourself noticing more, even without the camera. The 5 senses pause. When everything feels too much, when your thoughts are spiraling or the numbness is crushing, you can return to your body, your senses, the present moment. Sit comfortably. Take one slow breath. Then ask yourself, what do I see right now? Look for colors, shapes, light. What do I hear? The hum of a fridge, birdsong, distant traffic. What do I smell? Fresh laundry, coffee, rain, nothing at all. What can I feel? Your hands on your lap, the fabric of your shirt. What can I taste? Even if it's only the aftertaste of tea or toothpaste, this isn't about mindfulness as a lofty goal. It's about anchoring yourself gently in the present. Sophia, 41, began doing this in the car before heading into work. She said it felt like pressing a reset button. Even on the hardest mornings, it reminded her there was still a world outside her thoughts. The soft power of these practices. You might wonder, will this really help? Will noticing a smell or a sound or a ray of light change anything? Not all at once. But healing rarely happens all at once. It happens in whispers. These are not cures. They are comforts. And comforts are not small. Every moment you pause to notice a micro-pleasure is like placing a pebble on the scale, one tiny weight against despair. Over time, the scale begins to tip. A soft invitation. Choose one practice, not all 4. Just one. Try it tomorrow. Let it be messy and imperfect. Maybe it's opening the curtains. Or writing one sentence in a journal. Or snapping a photo of the sky. Whatever it is, let it be enough. Because you are enough. Chapter 5, Letting Go of the Pressure to Be Happy. What if happiness isn't a destination to reach, but a quiet presence that comes when we stop running toward it? The exhaustion of chasing happiness. For years, Marissa tried everything. She was 39, with a successful career, 2 young children, and a supportive partner, but inside she felt hollow. She read self-help books late into the night, underlined quotes about gratitude and positivity, forced herself into yoga classes she didn't enjoy. Friends praised her discipline and called her an inspiration. But it felt like she was performing happiness, not feeling it. There were moments, fleeting ones, when a warm breeze or her daughter's laughter broke through her numbness, but almost immediately, she would scold herself, "You're not doing enough. You should be grateful. You should be happy by now." The more she demanded happiness of herself, the more it slipped away. It wasn't until her therapist gently asked, "What would happen if you stopped trying so hard?" that something softened. Marissa didn't have an answer at first. But in the weeks that followed, she began to loosen her grip. She stopped forcing gratitude. She let herself feel sad without fixing it. She began noticing, not chasing, small comforts, her dog leaning against her leg, the smell of rain-soaked earth, the weight of her favorite blanket. And in those unguarded moments, she realized happiness wasn't something to achieve. It was something that sometimes arrived when she least expected it. Why the pressure to be happy hurts. In today's world, happiness is marketed like a product: 10 steps, 30 days, one magic mindset shift. Social media scrolls show endless smiles, sunlit kitchens, people proclaiming they've found their joy. It's easy to feel defective when you're struggling. You might think, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I feel like that?" But here's what no one tells you: the constant striving to feel happy can make the darkness heavier. Psychologists call it toxic positivity, the idea that we must push away negative emotions and replace them with joy, but human emotions aren't switchable. The harder we fight sadness or numbness, the louder they often become. What if happiness isn't about force or effort? What if it's about space? Allowing space for all feelings. Imagine your emotions as guests at a table. Joy, sadness, anger, grief, peace, they all arrive uninvited. Most of us try to shove the bad feelings out the door, but they knock louder, demanding to be seen. Depression is not a failure to be happy. It's a signal that something within you needs tending. And tending doesn't mean fixing. It means sitting quietly, offering yourself kindness, and allowing what is here to simply be. Happiness, in this way, becomes a byproduct of allowing. Noticing the pleasant without rejecting the unpleasant. Holding both. The wisdom of rest. You are allowed to rest. To stop striving. To simply exist without performing joy for yourself or others. Lena, 42, described her depression as a constant voice whispering, "Try harder." She believed if she worked on herself enough, read enough, meditated enough, she could earn peace. But in her moments of deepest exhaustion, she did nothing. She sat on her balcony, watched clouds pass, and let herself exist without expectations. Ironically, those quiet, unproductive moments were when she began to feel a flicker of relief. Letting happiness come to you. There's a Japanese concept called yutori. It means spaciousness, living with a little room to breathe. It's not about doing more or achieving faster. It's about allowing pauses between life's demands. When we stop grasping for happiness, we create yutori, space where small joys can drift in naturally. The smell of coffee. A bird singing outside. The sound of your child humming in the next room. Happiness isn't gone. It's just quieter than you expected. And it will return in its own time. A gentle practice, the no expectations pause. Once a day, sit quietly for 3 minutes. No goals. No journal. No meditation app. Look around. Let your eyes rest where they want. Breathe without changing your breath. If thoughts come, let them. If feelings arise, let them. You don't need to feel peaceful. You don't need to feel happy. Just be. A gentle reminder. Happiness doesn't have to be pursued. It is not a prize for perfect healing. It often comes quietly when you stop trying so hard to find it. You are not broken because you feel sad. You are not failing because you don't feel joy. You are human. Even now, even in the heaviness, you are worthy of love, rest, and care. A soft invitation. Tonight, give yourself permission to let go of the question, "Am I happy yet?" Instead, ask, "What is here right now?" Perhaps there is sadness. Perhaps there is numbness. Perhaps there is a faint comfort, the softness of your pillow, the hush of night air, the sound of your own steady breath. Whatever is here is enough. And so are you. Chapter 6, Building a Life of Gentle Joys. A joyful life isn't built in giant leaps. It's built in sips of tea, in stolen quiet moments, in the softness of ordinary days. When life feels like survival. For years, David had lived in survival mode. Wake. Work. Sleep. Repeat. At 45, he'd convinced himself that anything beyond this rhythm, pleasure, rest, joy, was for other people. People who hadn't been hurt. People whose minds didn't betray them with waves of heaviness. He imagined joy as a distant mountaintop. Too high, too far, requiring energy he didn't have. But something shifted the day his neighbor handed him a paper bag of still warm muffins. It wasn't the muffins, not really. It was the smallness of the kindness, how it broke through the gray for a moment. That evening, David ate one slowly, standing by the window, watching dusk settle over the street. It wasn't happiness, not in the way he used to understand it, but it was something softer. A whisper. A reminder that maybe life didn't have to be all survival. Gentle joys as threads, not goals. There's a quiet myth in our culture that joy requires reinvention. We're told to quit our jobs, find our passions, declutter our homes, and journal every morning at sunrise. But for someone moving through depression, even small changes can feel enormous. What if joy doesn't demand a grand redesign? What if it grows not in sudden bursts, but in threads, woven slowly, almost invisibly, into the fabric of ordinary days? Consider the woman who takes her tea outside each morning, rain or shine, just to watch the world wake up. Or the father who listens to the same jazz album while washing dishes because it reminds him of college. Or the teacher who lights a candle every evening, a quiet ritual signaling the end of the day. These aren't grand gestures. They are tiny roots sinking deep, steadying us in a world that so often feels unsteady. A story, the evening ritual that saved her. Kathy, 38, didn't set out to create a ritual. It happened almost by accident. She had been working late most nights, eyes burning from the glare of her laptop, chest tight with the constant hum of anxiety. One evening, overwhelmed and unable to focus, she shut her computer and walked to the kitchen. She boiled water, added a tea bag, and stood watching the steam curl into the air. That first evening, she didn't feel better. But there was something comforting in the simple act of holding a warm cup, in the way the scent of chamomile seemed to fill the small, silent space of her apartment. The next night, she did it again. And the next. It became a signal to her nervous system: the day is over. You can rest now. Months later, she realized these small tea moments had become sacred, not because they fixed her life, but because they reminded her it was still hers. The science of micro-rituals. Neuroscientists tell us that small, consistent rituals help anchor our brains. They create predictable moments of calm, which soothe an overactive amygdala and gently engage the reward circuits dulled by depression. But beyond science, there is something deeply human about ritual. It says to the tired mind and body, you matter enough for this. The ritual doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to lead to epiphanies or breakthroughs. It only needs to feel doable and kind. Allowing joy to grow slowly. Anna, 41, had spent years trying to overhaul her life: new diets, new planners, new morning routines. Each time, she burned out and blamed herself. It wasn't until she stopped trying so hard that something shifted. She began ending her days with 5 minutes of music, whatever song felt right. Some evenings she danced, other times she simply lay on the floor, letting the notes wash over her. She didn't call it self-care or a practice. She called it breathing space. Over time, these small pauses created room for other pleasures to return. A short walk, a text exchange with an old friend. A sudden, unforced laugh at a TV show. Happiness didn't arrive like fireworks. It crept in like dawn, quiet and tender. You don't have to earn joy. One of the hardest beliefs to unlearn is that we must earn rest and pleasure. That we must fix ourselves first, become better, more productive, more healed. But joy is not a reward for being good. It's your birthright as a human being. Even in struggle. Especially in struggle. You don't have to wait for a better version of yourself to enjoy a soft blanket, a favorite song, or the taste of chocolate melting on your tongue. A gentle invitation to start small. If the thought of building a joyful life feels too big, shrink it. Shrink it until it fits into a single moment. This isn't about doing more. It's about letting what is already here meet you where you are. What if tomorrow, you paused for 30 seconds to watch the sky? What if that was enough? What if folding laundry to music, or lighting a candle as you eat dinner, could be the start of something beautiful? A gentle reminder. Joy doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be constant. It doesn't have to announce itself. Sometimes, it slips in through the cracks when you're not looking, settling gently in your tired heart. You don't need to chase joy. You don't need to force it. You only need to let yourself be here, alive, noticing. One small comfort at a time. One tiny ritual at a time. This is how a life of gentle joys is built. A soft invitation. Tonight, as you get ready for bed, pause. Notice how your sheets feel against your skin. Listen to the sounds around you, the hum of your home, your own steady breath. Whisper to yourself, this is enough. I am enough. And tomorrow, see if you can notice one more small thing. Not because you must, but because you can. Chapter 7, When Darkness Returns, Holding On Through Hard Days. Healing isn't linear. Some days the light feels close. Other days it slips away again. But even then, even there, you are not lost. The weight of backsliding. Sophia had been doing better. Or at least that's what everyone said. She was sleeping more. Eating again. Laughing occasionally at her coworkers' bad jokes. She even started noticing small joys, the way the morning sun streamed across her kitchen floor, the smell of bread toasting, the purr of her cat curled on her lap. But one morning, she woke to the familiar heaviness in her chest. It wasn't catastrophic, just a gray fog settling over her thoughts. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her slippers on the floor, unable to summon the energy to move. Panic prickled under her skin. I thought I was getting better, she whispered to herself. Why is this happening again? What's wrong with me? But nothing was wrong with Sophia. This is what healing often looks like, not a straight, sunlit road, but a winding path with unexpected dips and valleys. Healing isn't linear. There's a quiet truth few people talk about: depression doesn't always leave neatly. Even as you practice noticing small joys, even as your days slowly feel lighter, there may still be moments when the darkness returns. This isn't failure. It isn't proof that your progress was an illusion. It's simply the nature of being human, of living in a body and mind that ebb and flow. Think of healing like the tide. Waves rush in, washing you with moments of relief. Then, almost imperceptibly, the tide pulls back. The sand feels dry again, empty. But the water hasn't disappeared. It will return. A story, The Return of the Fog. At 43, Daniel had been through cycles of depression enough times to recognize the pattern. Each time he began to feel lighter, he feared the next fall. On one particularly hard evening, he sat alone in his kitchen, staring at the cold remains of dinner. The familiar voice in his mind hissed, "Here we are again. You'll never really get better." But this time, Daniel did something different. He didn't fight the feeling. He didn't reach for his phone to distract himself or berate himself for slipping back. Instead, he whispered aloud, "It's okay. This is part of it." He poured himself a glass of water, lit a small candle, sat and watched the flame dance. It wasn't a victory. It wasn't even a relief. But it was a thread, thin and fragile, that kept him tethered to the present moment. Over the coming days, the fog slowly lifted. The power of gentle acceptance. When darkness returns, the temptation is to resist. To clench your fists, to force yourself out of it, to demand a reason why. But sometimes, the softest and bravest act is to allow it to be there. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to force yourself to be grateful or positive. You only need to remind yourself, this is not forever. I have been here before. And I came through. The gift of small anchors. On hard days, it can help to lean on your anchors, the small, steady comforts you've discovered along your journey. Eliza found hers in music. On her hardest mornings, she played the same quiet piano song as she sipped her tea, even when she felt nothing. For Amir, it was stepping outside, closing his eyes, and feeling the air on his face. He didn't call it self-care or mindfulness. He called it breathing. These small acts aren't cures. They're not meant to pull you instantly from the darkness. They're reminders that even now, even here, you deserve tenderness. You are not back at the beginning. It's easy to believe a hard day erases all your progress. But think of yourself as a tree. Even in winter, when the branches are bare and the air is cold, growth is still happening unseen in the roots. Your earlier practices, the noticing, the small rituals, the moments of joy, have laid foundations. The fact that you felt light before means it can return. A story, the strength to sit with it. Layla, 40, once thought strength meant never breaking down. But after years of therapy, she learned strength could also mean sitting on the bathroom floor, tears streaming down her face, and saying softly, "I can't do much right now, and that's okay." On her hardest days, she didn't journal or meditate or call friends. She didn't even leave the house. She simply wrapped herself in a blanket, opened the window a crack, and let herself feel the air. Over time, she noticed something strange. The more she allowed the darkness to exist without fighting it, the less power it seemed to hold. A gentle reminder. A setback is not the end. It's not a verdict. It's just a moment, a wave that will rise and fall like all the others before it. You are still healing. You are still growing. Even now. A soft invitation. If today feels heavy, ask yourself, what is one small kindness I can offer myself right now? Maybe it's drinking a glass of water. Maybe it's changing into softer clothes. Maybe it's simply placing a hand on your chest and whispering, "You're doing the best you can." That's enough. You're enough. Chapter 8, You deserve joy, even in small doses. You don't have to fix your life before joy is allowed to visit. Even here, even now, you are worthy of light. The myth of enoughness. For years, Marcus believed he had to earn joy. As a boy, he learned early that love came with conditions: be good, be quiet, be strong. As an adult, he carried those unspoken rules into his own heart. Whenever he felt a flicker of contentment, a good meal, a kind word, his mind would whisper, "Not yet. Not until you're better. Not until you've worked harder, healed more, done enough." So he kept pushing. More therapy. More self-help books. More routines. Until one day, exhausted and teary, he sat in his cluttered apartment and stared at the late afternoon light spilling across the floorboards. It was nothing special. But for the first time, he let himself feel it without argument. The warmth on his skin. The hush of the moment. Something inside him softened. The unconditional nature of joy. We are taught to see joy as a reward. Work hard, be strong, heal your wounds, and then, maybe, you will deserve it. But joy does not ask for permission. It does not wait for you to become perfect. It does not demand credentials. You are alive. You are breathing. That is enough. Even in sorrow, even in exhaustion, even in the quiet ache of depression, you are allowed to feel a moment of lightness. A smile at a passing stranger. A sip of warm tea. The faint comfort of clean sheets at the end of a hard day. These are not luxuries, they are reminders of your humanity. A story, The Power of a Single Strawberry. Elena, 38, had been in the depths of depression for months. One afternoon, she forced herself out of the house and walked to the market. She wasn't looking for joy, she just needed groceries. As she passed a stall of ripe strawberries, she paused. On impulse, she bought a small carton and carried it home. Later, sitting at her kitchen table, she ate one slowly. The sweetness surprised her. She hadn't noticed flavor in weeks. For a few seconds, she felt present, alive. Tears came, not because she was sad, but because she had forgotten how simple pleasure could feel. It wasn't a cure. It didn't erase her pain. But it reminded her of something essential: joy doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it's one strawberry, eaten with your full attention. Joy as a birthright. You are not broken for struggling. You are not unworthy for being tired. You do not have to delay joy until you are better. Imagine telling a child they must first accomplish something great before they're allowed to laugh or play. You wouldn't. You know instinctively that joy belongs to them simply because they are here. The same is true for you. Small joys as acts of resistance. In a world that celebrates productivity and perfection, allowing yourself even tiny pleasures can feel radical. To pause. To breathe. To notice beauty. To say, even if I do nothing today, I am still deserving of this soft moment. These small joys are not indulgences. They are acts of care, of rebellion, of survival. A story, The Return of Laughter. Jay, 45, hadn't laughed in months. Not really. His days were a blur of work, sleep, and silent battles with his own mind. One night, he stumbled across an old comedy show he loved as a teenager. Without much thought, he pressed play. At first, he barely paid attention. But halfway through, something surprising happened. A joke landed, and a laugh, small, shaky, real, escaped his chest. He paused, startled by the sound. Then he cried, not from sadness, but from relief. It wasn't constant, that laughter, but it returned, here and there, like a bird finding its way back after a long winter. You don't have to chase joy. Sometimes joy comes when you stop trying to find it. It arrives quietly, like sunlight slipping through curtains. You don't need to plan for it or perform for it. You only need to notice when it shows up, and let it stay, even for a heartbeat. It could be the smell of coffee, the weight of a blanket, the way a favorite song fills the room. Joy doesn't ask for you to be ready. It asks only that you let yourself feel, even for a moment. A gentle reminder. You deserve joy, not because you've healed, not because you've earned it, but because you are here, and your being here is enough. The road ahead may still hold valleys and shadows. But even there, you are allowed small comforts, small pleasures, small flashes of light. Even now. Especially now. A soft invitation. Tonight, as you lay your head down, let go of the thought that you must do more to be worthy. You are already enough. And if tomorrow you catch a glimpse of sunlight, or taste something sweet, or hear a song that stirs something in your chest, allow it in. You don't have to hold it tightly. You don't have to make it last. Just let it touch you gently. Closing words. This isn't the end of your journey. It's not a perfect resolution. But perhaps it's a beginning. A life of gentle joys is not built in a day, or a week, or even a year. It grows slowly, tenderly, in tiny unnoticed ways. You have already begun. Epilogue, the quiet miracle of staying. You don't have to become someone new. You don't have to have it all figured out. You are already enough, just as you are, breathing in this moment. There is no perfect ending to healing. No finish line where all the pain dissolves and life feels only light. But maybe that was never the point. Maybe the miracle is this: you are still here. After everything, the heartbreaks, the silent battles, the days when even getting out of bed felt impossible, you stayed. And in staying, you've made space for life to touch you again. Not all at once, not in dazzling, cinematic ways. But in quiet, almost invisible moments. The smell of rain on warm pavement. The sound of your own laughter surprises you. The softness of your favorite sweater against your skin. This is not a small thing. This is everything. So go gently. Trust the slow unfurling. Let yourself live in the small joys, one breath, one moment at a time. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming, softly, quietly, beautifully. And you deserve every ounce of light that finds you. A letter from the author. Dear you, if you've made it here, whether you read every word or only a few pages, I want to pause and say this: I am so deeply glad you're here. I don't know the specifics of your story. I don't know the shape of your pain, the weight you've been carrying, or the quiet victories you've made just to get through your days. But I do know that being human is tender and hard and miraculous all at once. Writing these words, I often imagined you as someone sitting across from me, a warm drink between us, your shoulders heavy with things unspoken. And I wanted to tell you, not with pressure, not with fixes, that you are already enough. You don't have to become perfect. You don't have to force yourself into joy. You don't have to perform healing to be worthy of love. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to rest. And even here, in the middle of all your questions, you are allowed to taste small joys when they come, because they do come, in quiet ways, often when we least expect them. I hope, as you return to your life, you carry with you not the pressure to change, but a soft invitation, to notice. To breathe. To let gentle moments touch you without demanding they last. You have already survived so much. You are still becoming. And the world is quietly better because you are in it. Take your time. Be kind to yourself. The light will find you again. With all my heart, SWL.